actually, some people have these questions, or they typically ask the queer people or trans people, when did you know? Have you always been this way? Did something make you this way? So, how early, just a simple question, how early did you know that you were, like, trans?
Hi, I'm Itty, and this is the People's Queen Speaks.
Cheers.
Hi everyone, T Bauer here. I'm here with my next guest for the People's Queen Speaks, and this one is a very special one to me. This one is being released during Pride Week. Well, at the very least, it will be released during Pride.
Emphasis on pride.
Emphasis on Pride. And I've got a very special guest here who's going to be sharing his story and his experience as a queer person, as a queer trans person, as a queer trans person from Africa, Nigeria.
Oh my god. Going really niche, yeah?
This one is really special to me because the purpose of the People's Queen Speaks is really to capture real experiences, people's real. I can't see how much more genuine and real it can get than this.
Swears.
Okay,
What do you want to ask me?
what would you like to call me?
Just call me A.
A?
Yeah.
Okay.
Weird, but yeah.
Okay, cool.
A is good.
So, A, thank you for, being a guest
Yeah.
on this show.
Thank you for having me.
Can you talk to us a little bit, please, about, your experience and just who you are as a person? You don't have to start with, the topics we'll be talking about. Just give us an overview of who you are as a person.
That's interesting because who am I as a person? I feel like I'm just a human being who loves life, right? I do not define myself by my sexuality or anything. I think I love to live. Let's start from there. I have a career that I'm pursuing, I see myself as someone who wants to have a family, who wants to branch out and have friends, who wants to make a lot of money, just
Very
live
important.
like every other person lives.
Yeah.
And also, I consider myself to be a religious person as well.
Yes.
Yeah, so I love God. I don't like not just the idea of God, but I love God. So I feel like all of this just makes me who I am. I'm trying not to be goal so specific because I don't want people to this is A, the A is real life. But yeah, so that's just how I'm going to define myself as.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's go a little bit backwards and let's start with, coming into realizing who you are. Can you tell us a little bit about maybe when you first realized you were queer, and then we can start with that, and then move into when you realized actually you were a trans man.
Okay. So, where do I start from? I think my earliest memories. Sorry, this lemon cake is good. My earliest memories go back to when I was in primary school. Primary one. I just realized that I always had crush on the girls in my class, right? I just wanted them to be my best friends and stuff like that. And then I wanted to be with the boys, but not as, that's your wife kind of thing.
Yeah.
But let's go check out the girls. I wanted to play football and all that. But then it didn't come up to me as queer or anything. It's just being a person, right?
Yeah.
And then growing up from there and coming into myself, I would watch movies, series, a lot of Telemundo, love movies, and I never saw myself as, the object of desire, as per the woman that is being, glamorized and all of that. I always saw myself from the perspective of a man, admiring this woman and stuff like that. But all of these, I won't say these define my sexuality, obviously, but these are just hints in my experiences that I'm like, okay, this is not something that everybody experiences in a normal way, right? Then moving on, I entered secondary school, and my very first, not even call her my girlfriend, but she was like my best friend, right? And it was just pure innocence. And we would kiss and play and stuff like that. And this was just my life. I didn't think of labels. I didn't think of anything. It didn't interfere with my going to church or loving God or being a person. It was just me. And then I think the very first time I did hear the word gay and stuff was when I was in SS1. And I was like, what is that?
SS1 is like basically
High school.
year 10 or year 11 for
Yeah,
those of us in the UK who
yeah,
are watching.
in high school, right? And then it was actually Teenagers Outreach Ministry, where the pastor was preaching about what gay people do, that the women like to stand and pee with funnels. Like, it was just a very, very funny description. And I was like, it was odd. But what stood out was that the person was talking about women being attracted to women and men being attracted to men, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh my God, okay. But even with that, it was very hard. I never labeled myself anything. I never called myself lesbian or bisexual and stuff because there was just something that's where it just didn't sit right.
Feel right.
It just didn't feel right, yeah.
Yeah.
But that didn't mean I was dating women,
Yeah.
right? I went into uni. Excuse me. I went into uni thinking that now I'm gonna be straight, right? I'm gonna have a boyfriend, initial gragra, all these kind of things, right? So I actually did have a uni. I had my first boyfriend in uni, and I do not know what we were doing. I was like, what the fuck? Like, I actually actively tried to feel among and stuff like that. And I didn't even know when he broke up with me, just to tell you how I love.
You didn't even care about the relationship.
Yeah, and then because I am a Christian and I love God so much, and I became so aware of the sexuality thing because somehow it started becoming a topic of news and stuff like that. There was a time I read a book by one pastor, I won't mention it, and it talked about the homosexuality spirit. All these things were just messing with my mind, right? So I decided I found myself becoming reclusive. There was a period where I wouldn't go out, like the whole week I'm shut in the house, and I'm praying, and I'm crying, God, take this away from me. I don't want to be like this. I don't want to be like this. So it's not like I stood up, I woke up, I decided to be a rebel. That's not my background, right? I did not want to be like, I want to be like everyone else. I want to be
You
normal.
actually wanted to be like everyone else and just feel comfortable
Exactly.
in your skin.
Exactly. And then I'm in school where we have to wear these uniforms, where we're mandated to wear skirts and stuff like that. It was hard because there was a time that I would wear clothes that I felt comfortable with. I would go to school, go to the toilet and change into the skirt, go have my lectures, come out and then change back into my clothes. It was a chaotic mess. And then moving on to sometime in 2013, 2014, and then there was this same-sex marriage law stuff that came out in Nigeria. I remember being in the bank and I felt attacked. Like, my mind, to tell you how probably I was dealing with some internalized homophobia. I never thought of the possibility of myself getting married to a woman and stuff, but I just thought of the liberty of being free to love. You understand? And all of these things just hurt. So I just made up my mind. At some point, I just said, you know what? I'm just going to be celibate for the Lord. Yeah, I'm going to be celibate for the Lord. At least I'm not hurting anybody, right? And I was
That
that.
sounds interesting. It's like one of those things that I think, that I know a lot of queer people feel, especially queer Africans growing up, where you're struggling with your queerness and you're just thinking, okay, well, since I can't help who I am, I will just not do the act.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And the thing about this thing is that some people are like, you should have tried harder, pray. But it's not like, God answers prayers, right? It's funny how all my prayers have been answered apart from this particular one, where I'm even joining works. To me, they say faith without works is dead. I did. My dad, you don't want to know what towards the end of my final year, I tried to have a boyfriend again, and this was someone who knew and understood me and was even ready to put that aside, thinking that I would change and say, well, let's get married and stuff. And I saw myself, I love makeup, I still love makeup, I still love a lot of things, but I saw myself overcompensating, trying to be so hyper feminine, thinking that it was gonna change my person. But I just found out that I was getting sadder and sadder, and I wasn't just being myself in any way and stuff like that. So it got to a point where I just felt like I was suffocating and I needed to run away. And my first attempt was just to leave the country to go pursue my master's degree. And I think that was just the first step to freedom. Freedom, not in freedom from religion or anything, because I still love God and stuff like that, but just freedom of self-expression, but then I still carried my internalized homophobia with me, by the way.
Yeah.
I still would pass by a group of men and my walking step would change because I felt that probably I had to appease them. There were just some certain mannerisms that I had.
You mean you would walk by men and instead of walking like yourself, maybe in a more masculine presenting
Exactly.
way, you would walk more feminine.
Yeah. I just wanted to not be, I said it was written on my forehead, like, you are this, you are that. I didn't want to be labeled as anything like that. And I think that was it for me as a queer person. But moving on to the the trans aspect of it.
Yeah.
I think it also has to do with growth because, first of all, I had to accept myself as being queer, first of all. And my acceptance came from, to be honest, the Bible.
This is very, very, very interesting. And this is really interesting, guys, because not only do I have somebody who's openly talking about their queerness, but we're going to hear something really interesting about how your queerness does not have to be separated from your religion. And in fact, you came to peace with being trans through your relationship with God.
God.
Yeah,
So
tell
that
us
the
a
fact,
little bit more about that.
yeah, the fact that people think that they're mutually exclusive, that's what I thought for a very long time. Where, for me, my definition of sin was that anything that takes me away from God, I don't want to do it. So because I felt that I couldn't be queer and Christian at the same time, it was as if I had to choose between both of them. And then I still went back to the Bible. I had to study, thank you so much. I had to study and see and pray and say, okay, what are these things? What are these scriptures people are using against me in the first place? And if I read the Bible and I see that, lo and behold, because I have decided to be a Christian, lo and behold, God is saying you're going to hellfire for this, then I will say, okay, maybe like say celibacy for life.
Yeah.
Because I can't pretend to like who it's hard.
It's
you can't,
very hard
You can't like
pretending
who,
to be somebody
I
else.
mean, do you understand? So I read the Bible, I went back to Sodom and Gomorrah story and where everything usually starts from. I'm like, that probably should be another conversation for another day. But I read that. I read Leviticus and the instructions for queer people and gay people and stuff like that. Like I studied the Bible, and after studying the Bible, at the end of the day, I was like, what would Jesus say? And I was just like, this is BS. This is BS. We are making rules and defining culture and society based on what we think it should be, and at the end of the day the power lies in our hands, right? And that was it for me. I was just like, I'm going to be who I'm going to be. I'm not going to actively searching for love or whatever, but if love happens, it happens, and I'm just going to be myself, right? I'm not going to force myself into any box or anything. And then with that came growth, because still in that phase of primary school and all of that, when I hit puberty, I almost hated myself. I never saw myself as ugly. Let's start from there. I thought I was beautiful. I thought myself as smart. I never had any say I hated myself. That's not it. But right from when I could identify and say this is a boy and this is a girl, I just felt like, why am I wearing a dress? Do you understand? I wanted to look and be the other way. And
Actually, some people have these questions that they typically ask queer people or trans people. When did you know? Have you always been this way? Did something make you this way? So, how early, just a simple question, how early did you know that you were, trans?
Okay, I didn't
Or
know.
how early did you know you were different?
How early I knew I was different was probably 6 years old. 6 years old, that's it. I didn't know the word trans until quite recently, right? But I did know that I just did not, what people define as female, right? First of all, I see myself as a person, as a human being.
You're just a person.
I'm just a person, right? But when I hit puberty, it became more glaringly obvious that I was different from who I thought I was, right? Because my mannerisms, every single thing was what we would say is a boy. Oh, she's a tomboy. She's growing a tomboy. But it was not just about me being a tomboy. It was the fact that I actually saw myself as I'm one of the guys. So when I started growing breasts and stuff like that, I would tie myself up. There was a time, I would never forget this. We usually pray, right? I would say, oh, give God ultimatums in quotes. God, between this and this, give me money. So if you give me money, I'll give my whole life to you, that kind of stuff. So I kind of like gave God an ultimatum. I was like, God, I marked the calendar and I was like, God, make me a boy between this thing and this thing. Make me a boy, I will serve you for the rest of my life. I prayed now. I was praying every day and my breasts were getting bigger and nothing was changing. So I was like, every day I would go and look at the calendar and nothing changed, right? So growing up now, and I found myself being stuck within being, androgynous, because it looked like there was nothing I could do about it anyway.
Right.
And just, I don't know, wearing female outfits and stuff like that. And then I started to find myself, I had to start overcompensating, right? So there was that phase where, obviously, I've entered uni and stuff, and I'm trying to be so hyper feminine because I want people to not see through me. But before then, there was that phase of me just wearing clothes that I wanted to wear, appearing how I wanted to appear, cutting my hair, just feeling free, binding my chest, packing without knowing that people in other parts of the world
We're also doing
the same thing. Do you understand?
Isn't it crazy how we all kind of share these experiences without even, and this actually goes towards it goes against this notion that people think, oh, there's this agenda, where
what kind of
everyone
agenda?
is, you're being recruited or everyone is being indoctrinated or something.
I
But
swear.
no, people are just living and experiencing things, and their own experiences are determining their actions. Because a lot of different people are experiencing the same feelings, it kind of leads to the same actions.
Yeah.
Across different lives.
And then it just, because of the social media and everything now, we're able to see other people's experiences from other parts of the world.
Yeah.
That's not to say that some people have been abused. Obviously, that's a story, conversation
that's
for another
another-
distance.
yeah.
But sometimes I get asked, were you molested? I didn't go to boarding school. I cannot relate to. I do not understand all of those things. Do you understand? And I don't think I was abused because I have no memory of that. I wasn't, right? I grew up in a loving Christian home, and I had this picture of having a perfect family for myself, but I couldn't picture myself as a wife, or not because I thought my mom was subservient or anything, but because it just didn't sit. Like, I saw myself as floating, being independent. It just didn't sit right with me, right? So with the whole trans stuff, moving on from there, where did I stop before? I'm entering uni, now I'm forced to wear skirts all through and stuff like that. It doesn't mean that in my heart of hearts, I know how I want to be, how I want to be comfortable with, right? Now moving on, I've done my master's, I've gone to another country, I'm experiencing things, and I've grown. There's growth, and I'm very happy that I did not make certain decisions way younger, probably taking puberty blockers and stuff, because I want to make an informed decision to know that, is this who I really am? Because sometimes we're growing up, we feel like, oh, do I hate myself? There's just a lot of questions. We're not that knowledgeable about it, right? But then I've seen myself as a person, and I'm not defined by my gender or my sex or whatever. I want to be comfortable. Emphasis on comfortable, right? And beyond that, when I see myself in the mirror, I see myself as how I've always seen myself, which was with all those masculine features and stuff, right? So that being said, I had to love myself first. I had to get rid of some internalized homophobia, and just, so I learned to love myself, but that also helps me identify what I was dysphoric about. Because this is not about me hating myself and, oh, I'm a woman born in a man's body. That's not it. I identify that, oh, I love myself, I'm dysphoric about this and that. This is what I want to change.
Yeah. So actually, that leads me on to, I have just 3 other questions. I want to talk about love. I also want to talk about, the opposite of that, which could be self-hate, or this notion, self-hate that can also sometimes lead to perhaps delusions, or making one separate themselves so much from who they actually are. And I just wanted to talk about, the experience of becoming your full self in terms of maybe the surgical route or the medical route, right? So first things first, let's talk a bit about love, and we'll just keep it quite short. Some people might know you are quite close to me. You're actually very close, very, very close to me. Let's talk a little bit about love in terms of family and relationships. Because you mentioned you grew up in a loving Christian home. As you are living your authentic full self as a trans man, what's that like, with the love between yourself and your family members, and maybe even finding relationships and being in a relationship?
I think it's let's start with family. I think it's difficult to navigate, because it's one thing to come out as queer, and it's another thing to add trans to it, trans to the mix, because then it's just written on your forehead. Do you understand? So it doesn't. I know my parents love me, and my siblings love me, but they also have their own orientation and perception about life. And in as much as, like, my siblings, for example, grew up in the same environment, in the same Christian theologies, but we're all different people, right? So I will not blame anyone for being less accepting of who I am or who I'm not. I just don't want anyone judging me or making me hate myself or something, right? So it's one thing for people to not accept who you are, it's another thing for people to disrespect that.
And with family, to actively make your life hell. For, right?
Yeah, and so far so good. With family, it's been okay. They tell me, oh, God said this, God said that. Excuse me. And I see that they're coming from a space of love, and I do understand. That's with family. As for relationships, like I did mention before, that I had to go to love myself.
Right.
And you can't give love if you do not love yourself. So I feel like my earliest relationships would have suffered because I wasn't my entire self. I wasn't bringing all of my being to the table. Do you understand? But currently, I'm in a safe space. I'm being myself, right? I'm comfortable as myself. I'm not defined by what I wear and stuff like that, which means that whether I'm doing surgery or I'm not or whatever, if I want to paint my nails or wear makeup or whatever, I'm doing all of that. I'm not defined by that. So that's love for me. And I used to say I'm a romance 5-5 person. God's love has been shed upon my heart. And I don't need religion or Christ to tell me to love.
Okay.
It's something that should be in my nature as a person, and that's how I see love in life generally.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that answer. I now wanted to ask, about the self-love, the self-hate that kind of leads to this extreme separation from one's original self. It's a bit of a sensitive topic, but if you're happy to answer me. Now, I know that some people, when they think about the trans experience and the trans community, what they don't understand is, when people say, oh, trans men are men, trans women are women, and for some people, or some trans people, it's almost as if you cannot in any way talk about the fact that they're cisgender, right? The cisgender part of them that they were born with. So, do you have any comments on that? Or do you, for you, what is it like? Can somebody actively say, oh yeah, hey, you used to be, I knew you when you were a girl kind of thing, and would that offend you? Or are you or just they see me as a guy?
I am not delusional. I am not delusional. The fact is that there is nothing that can change it. Present reality. Let me talk about myself. Instead of projecting it. I was born a cisgendered woman. My genes, my genetic makeup, XX chromosomes, that's what it is. It is what it is. Unless there is some sort of magic potion or science somewhere that could change XX to XY and erase my entire past and identity, it doesn't change it. I am not ashamed of the fact that I was born a cisgendered woman, right? And to appreciate yourself as a trans person, you have to appreciate that you were cis, right? So that being said, I'm not delusional about it, and I would not be offended if someone tries to, say, oh, this is what I was before, now this and that.
Of course, there's a difference between not respecting who you are now and just saying, oh, I knew you when you were like that. That's different.
Yeah, and I think there's also one thing I have to say, is that if you see yourself as a person, a trans person, for me, how I see it is just how I feel comfortable presenting to the world. Not necessarily, because I see myself as a person. I don't know what it feels like to be a man, what it feels like to be a woman. I just feel like a human being that loves life and loves love and loves God, and I want to live.
And that's just it.
That's just it. So I want to present and feel comfortable how I want to feel comfortable, and I'm on hormones and I'm working out and going down the surgical route, and it is what it is. I'm not going to be going out to tell people that, oh, because I'm a trans man, I'm a trans man. Trans men are men. But also, I was a cisgendered woman. So I understand, I can relate to the lived experiences of women being unsafe in male spaces and all of those things. And also, I cannot relate to the lived experiences of cisgendered men. So it's I find it really crazy when, I don't know if I should say this in this interview, but sometimes I find it really crazy when you see trans women taking up spaces of cisgendered women because they are denying the fact that they were once cisgendered men.
Right.
You cannot relate to the lived experiences of cisgendered women.
Right.
Science hasn't gotten to the way where you're seeing your periods and you can't birth. You shouldn't erase the identities of cis people because you want to feel like you are. That's just how I see it.
I think there's real beauty in appreciating the terms or the saying that trans men are men, trans women are women. It encapsulates everything at a high level. But I think there is beauty in appreciating that space of the transitioning. In my opinion, and it's just purely my opinion, a trans man is a man. He is a trans man.
Exactly.
A trans woman is a woman. She is a trans woman. And people should not conflate the experiences of cisgendered people who have lived in that, who have been in that experience all their life. I don't know, it's a bit of a sticky one, but no offense or no shade to anybody who is, currently in transition or thinking they want to transition, or just living internally as a trans person, or just still being cis but haven't transitioned yet. Absolutely no offense at all. It's just a discussion really to live through an experience.
You've got to love yourself. And some trans people have a lot of self-hate that it goes down to their identities, that they just kind of like blind to the fact that they were not born the way they have transitioned to. So you're a trans woman, you haven't done any surgery, fine, you're trans, you're on hormones, you're not. I hate the idea of passing. I don't like all those things. But the reality is, the way societal structures have placed it is that a lot of women don't feel safe in male spaces. And if that is what you appear as, in as much as you identify as a trans woman or stuff like that, you should respect the fact that these women have their lived experiences, and it's not you that's the problem.
Yeah.
It's just that it is what it is.
Yeah.
It is what it is. As a trans man, I wouldn't expect myself. I still feel unsafe in a lot of male spaces.
Right.
Yes, I still do, and that's because my lived experience as a woman made me hypersensitive to there are men around me and whatever. So if I want to enter the male bathroom, it's stupid for me to use a urinal when I don't have
The equipment for that.
Do you understand?
Yeah.
It's silly for me to think about getting a woman pregnant when I wasn't designed for that.
Yeah.
So it's not about, can I give birth or breastfeed or whatever. It's more about, for me, being comfortable in my skin and presenting to the world as what I feel comfortable as.
Yeah.
If you can go and have a cosmetic surgery, a rhinoplasty or whatever, I mean, it's not that deep,
It's not okay. So I guess this just like nicely leads on to my final question, our final topic, around transitioning, not just socially but medically, or should I say surgically. Are you comfortable sharing the fact that you're going through that right now?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, ready to spill the beans.
Okay. Do you have maybe anything you want to say to people who might be considering going down the medical route or the surgical route perhaps? Or just, do you want to share anything about your experience of the surgical transition?
Yeah, if there's anything I do appreciate, I appreciate the fact that I'm surrounded by people who care enough to ask me if this is what I exactly want, right? Because it's important to have therapy or counseling or talk about it just to be sure that, hey, this is not you running away from your problems. Some people are transitioning to be men because they feel like men have it easier. That's a very silly thing, right? So I feel like before going ahead any route, you should first of all appreciate and love yourself. Because when I started, I was so scared when I took testosterone for the first time that I stopped.
Yeah.
I did. I was like, oh my god! And then after my 3-4 months after I quit, I was miserable. Then I was like, yeah, this is actually it.
You actually want
this is actually it for me,
Yeah.
right? So you have to be sure, right? And then you also have to appreciate that in life we grow, and 10 years from now, you may have grown to that level where you feel like you're not defined by your gender or sexuality, and you feel like, maybe I wanted to transition. And you're transitioning now is not because, I did not give informed consent or the doctors butchered me or whatever. It should also be from the place of, I've grown, I'm at this place of my life, and I feel like I just want to be what I was born as.
Yeah,
Do you understand?
detransitioning should not be stigmatized. Just as transitioning should not be stigmatized, detransitioning also should not be stigmatized.
Yeah.
Because there are many people who also might feel like, actually, you know what?
Yeah.
It's never that
Yeah,
deep.
life is dynamic, and we are fluid people. To be honest, there are some things that are irreversible. By the
Yeah,
way,
of course.
let's be
Of
clear
course.
about that. You're taking, as a trans man, you're taking testosterone, right? Testosterone would obviously change a lot of things about your biology and your anatomy. So your voice is going to change. If you know you love to sing and you cannot embrace the fact that you're going to be having a baritone and deeper voice, think hard about that. Think about what you want to choose and what you want to lose, right? You should also know that some parts of your body might be growing hair, your will get bigger, things like that. Or if you're even going as far as a surgical route, say for a trans man, you're taking your breast off. Are you sure that is actually what you want? Would you ever feel like if you detransition, would you want your breast back?
Yeah.
So I'm at that space where I'm like, whether or not I'm on testosterone, I do not feel connected with these things on my chest, right? And that's a space for non-binary people as well, because they are not defined by what we say gender
Right,
is.
yeah.
So just keeping that open mind and loving yourself and feeling that you're free to grow would actually put less pressure on you, and you would appreciate every step of your journey. And then it's also good to, it's easier said than done, but having a good support system and people who just understand you for who you are, it goes a very long way. Because I don't think I think that my being able to do some certain things now, I'm grateful to my girlfriend, I'm grateful to my friends, to my sister, my family, and people on the internet that say good things about stuff like this, and even down to the Bible, knowing that Jesus loves me anyway.
Period.
Right? So,
Period.
I mean, yeah. So, I'm just all about self-love. Because transitioning from a point of self-hate is going to knock you out in the future. Because, yeah, that is it for me.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming onto the show to talk about your experience.
Thank you.
I know there are a lot of people that have questions, whether they're trans themselves or just curious, because not everyone is ignorant, or not everyone is hateful. Some people have questions, they just don't have the opportunity to ask, or they don't know how to ask.
Yeah.
So that is the purpose of having these real life conversations and getting to the heart of matters like this. I really appreciate this. Thank you to everybody who has watched this far. If you have any questions, I hope you can reach out to resources around you. I want you to know that you are loved, you are special, and you are valid in your experience. Okay, that's it. That's everyone. Itibala signing out. As always, stay curious, stay connected, stay beautiful.
Bye.
Bye.